Alright, in the previous session, Robert taught his new child, Albert Desjardins, about unlife, having newly embraced him. They survived in the wilds briefly before making the trek back to the place where Kirkwall once stood, as what remained was no longer a city but a burnt and blood-soaked ruin, apparently committed by a small number of savage men, but this time the details of the attack remain foggy at best. After rounding up and beguiling a crew of young men eager to flee the despair of Kirkwall, Robert stole a cog and sailed south to save the surviving nuns remaining at the pagan camp, before finally returning to Chester by way of Liverpool. It was around the end of August 1456. Elsewhere, Nicholas and Elined met London's new court occultist, an envoy from the east named Talisia, who has been instructed to aid and counsel the Gauntlet on sorcerous and supernatural matters. The group now seeks occult texts within the confines of the clergy to answer questions about a strange and forgotten tome amongst Robert's abandoned trinkets. So now, in late 1456, we will return to following Robert as he comes back to Britain from his long voyage, which had lasted many months in the north. Robert, what do you do with your crew, your nuns, and your new child, Albert Desjardins? You mean to go to the court of Barbaro. What will become of your new entourage?
Well, for the sailors, we'll see what he can do to, he doesn't need to really worry about him. He'll just, send them on their way.
They're fine with that, having made off quite handsomely with a few stolen trinkets of their own from the wreckage of Kirkwall. You know, even in passing, that they spread tale quickly of what happened there, the carnage of what they have seen. Details emerge of the story you hadn't heard from some of the other crew members as they remark. It seems as though it was just a few men, maybe 5 or 6 in number, that seemed very much focused on the castle of Kirkwall, but leaving much collateral damage in their wake. And they did not leave until it appeared that the leader amongst them exited the castle holding some silver chalice. Many died. Many were left without homes or future. But this is all in Robert's past as he leaves the crew to whatever their future is, restarting here in Chester perhaps. Are you leaving the nuns here as well?
In Chester? Probably not. They'd probably be, like, way too much trouble if they were left unattended in Chester. He'll probably, coerce them to keep them close. Until he decides what to do with them more concrete.
Alright, so you threaten them to make sure they stay with you?
Threaten? I don't know. By now, they probably would have warmed up to him. Maybe.
They definitely have not warmed up to you, as you are the one that sold them into slavery, and as much as anyone
And
was
sure, he'll
responsible
threat.
for...
He's not going to let him go free with all they've seen.
Yeah, they have seen much. They've experienced more. And other than what you supernaturally impose on them, they have nothing but hatred for you. But given what they have seen and experienced, they are afraid enough to do as you say for now. And Albert, do you give any instruction to him? He seems very attentive, very devoted to you. It seems as though the blood bond has persisted through undeath.
All of his energies will be focused on Albert to teach him the ways.
Okay. Then on the night that you go to the court of Chester, do you bring Albert with? Or do you leave him at an inn, perhaps? You have some coin. Not much, but you have some.
Well, perhaps an etiquette roll or something to figure out how to best proceed with this one?
Sure. I'll take an intelligence etiquette roll. Standard difficulty. That's at least 4 successes. So you are very confident in your knowledge about what is proper etiquette amongst the undead here. Albert certainly has to be presented to the prince here. You know that that is a universal Cainite law. Explaining where he comes from could become a bit trickier, although you also know that with your status as a Gauntlet Lord, you rank at least at the level of a Primogen in every Covenant city, and so embracing a child would not be the greatest offense, especially since it wasn't here in Chester. So you think bringing him with is probably the most appropriate.
And that is what Robert will do.
All right. As before, you enter the red sandstone castle of Chester, the great hall within, where you are made to wait briefly before you see the Seneschal, Magister Tredian Swift, greet you again, pleasant and polite as always. And Albert is at your side, still a bit bewildered by everything. You've spent enough time to... Well, actually, I would like to briefly get a roll from you on how well you've taught him.
Okay.
Give me a... Let's see, what makes the most sense? I'll take another intelligence etiquette roll, actually. Still standard difficulty. Your skill at teaching the etiquette of Cainites. 3 successes, okay. That's plenty enough to instill a healthy fear in Albert to mostly not say anything at all. Otherwise, he will say the wrong thing. And so he is wise enough by this point in your journey together to not say anything when he's presented.
Best possible outcome.
Ah, Lord de Vere. I was not certain if we would see you again after the last meeting. How do you fare?
I've been better, but I must say, I've had an interesting time.
Oh. Have you heard the news, then? Kind of raises an eyebrow looking at you.
I have my suspicions, but what news do you speak of?
Well, of course, the news of your once companion's demise, Judith.
This comes as a surprise.
Indeed. Ugly business, that. She, came about to Lord Barbaros's vassals to the north, Carlisle, Broga Ironbend. I understand that she had some intention of peace, though it did not go the way she had planned.
I see.
While I cannot officially regret her loss as an enemy of the Covenant, I personally sympathize, as I'm sure you were companions long enough to have some friendship at least.
What was there did exist.
But let us turn to new topics. I see you have a guest.
Of course. Robert will motion for him to step forward.
And Albert, somewhat clumsily, steps forward to your side and a bit in front, and bows briefly. Albert Desjardins, child of... He kind of looks to you before looking back. Lord Robert de Vere.
Robert gives a nod at this. Well, I've come to present him to my prince.
Is he still your prince, Lord de Vere?
Why would you suspect otherwise?
Well, you must understand our position as the faction which has not been backed by the Covenant. We were unsure of where loyalties lie. It seems that all had made clear that Ragnar was to be supported, at least at the first battle, and henceforth have not received news otherwise. Nor did we hear much of an endorsement from you at your previous visit. It was on my prince's mind, so I just wish to clarify.
Oh, certainly. I thought me coming over would have been clear enough of a statement. Why, yes, you and Prince Barbaros certainly do have my support.
Well, that is encouraging. I will be sure to let my prince know of this. I'm sure he will be pleased. May I ask where you have been? We have not heard word of your movement in some time. We have contacts here and there.
I had left Britain on business. One that should hopefully put an end to the strife.
An end to the strife between my lord and Lady Ragnar, or the Anarchs you speak of, perhaps.
Hopefully at least one, if not both.
It is quite a promise, my lord. May I inquire more details about this?
I do not think it is best to speak loudly on such matters, but if all goes well, justice will be carried out.
His eyes narrow, looking between you and Albert Desjardins. And you, young lad. I imagine you are a recent addition to Robert's company. From where do you hail? Albert looks to you as though for permission. He looks uncertain.
Robert will nod at that one question.
I am a native of England, Lord. An adventurer of sorts, but I've lived here and there, York for some time, other places. No great significance. And you've joined him for these adventures, these answers to all of our problems.
He has served me well. And because it would have been a waste for him to simply perish, I chose to take him as mine.
He must have seen some value in your life then, boy. Tell me, what do you make of this claim Baudevere has of this answer? What possible solution could he have to so many great conflicts? What have you seen in your travels?
Of that he knows precious little.
Well, as a fledgling, I am sure that is true, but I am most curious. From the perspective of the newly embraced, I would like to hear what all this appears to him. Once again, you can tell that Albert refuses to say anything unless he seems to get some kind of approval from you.
Well, Robert will try to deflect this answer. If a roll is needed to make it pass, so be it, but he'll essentially mentioned that he has already told you adventure, going to faraway places, seeing wondrous things. It is not for him to speak on such matters, not yet.
Well, you must understand, Lord de Vere, if I return to my prince and remark that not only has the Gauntlet Lord, Robert de Vere, endorsed our faction, he has an answer, perhaps not only to Ragnar but the Anarchs as well, to rid them all. Well, my prince will ask me, what are the details of this? To which I will have no answer unless I hear more. And surely I will appear a fool if I did not ask.
What you say is true. In this case, I'd say simply wait and see what events take place. I suspect ruin will come to Ragnar's house shortly.
And how soon do you expect this to occur, Lord de Vere?
That is up in the air. Could take months. For me to say a date would be difficult.
It would endear you to my Lord Barbaros much more if he knew the details. Perhaps, and he kind of looks to Albert, if we speak more privately. If you can fulfill such a promise, there would be much reward in loyalty to Barbaros.
Very well. I can give the basics of what has transpired in private.
Tredian gestures off towards Albert Desjardins, who looks very uncertain until the Magister looks him in the eye and gives a very forceful leave. Which is enough to send Albert away. Out the door. Another look from the Magister is enough for the few guards at the distant doors to depart, closing the door behind them, and he gestures for one of the nearby tables at the Great Hall and sits down. The basics, then.
Certainly. And from my understanding, one that has committed diablerie, at least in Ragnar's case, leaves a mark. Perhaps a curse. I don't know the details of such things. I simply sought one that would enact vengeance upon this mark.
So you claim that Ragnar is a Diablerist?
This is what I've been led to believe. And the coincidences that have taken place point to it. For certain, I cannot say.
And in response, you have enlisted the help of someone for vengeance upon the victim.
Yes, in a way. Less directly asking for help, more just waking them up.
Very interesting, Lord. Very interesting indeed. His eyes go off to the side. I assure you the details, sparing as they are, will be kept in private, in confidence. You, of course, have safe harbor within the Chester Castle for as long as you wish it.
Very good to hear.
You may feed, you may hold domain. I will discuss with Lord Barbaros, and he will determine what you may have here. Return tomorrow evening. I am certain Lord Barbaros will wish to swear you in as a vassal officially, though tonight he may be indisposed.
Can Robert get a hint at indisposed? Perhaps an empathy check?
Sure. Yeah, perception, empathy roll. Standard difficulty. Alright, 3 successes. It sounds like he is using a euphemism of some kind. Perhaps he's feeding, perhaps he's doing something else, but you don't get a very nefarious impression, more that he's just using polite euphemisms.
That sounds fair. Before I leave, though, do you know anything of relics?
Well, yes, I have studied many relics in my time. I'm a scholar of many cultures and many artifacts of unknown value. But why do you ask?
A lingering question on my mind. A silver chalice was hunted down. Robert tried to call the details if anything stood out other than just silver chalice.
The details from the crew that you heard in bits and pieces over time, it sounded as though it probably was not part of any normal dinnerware as part of the castle. You don't have a whole lot of details other than that, except that it It was a fairly standard but nice silver chalice. Not an unusual object per se on its own, perhaps a bit out of place in the hands of a monstrous feral man. You make a roll for Tready and Swift. I cannot say that I truly can recall any very memorable relics that fit that description, although it was said that perhaps the Holy Grail might have such appearance, although it is expected that is somewhere in the Levant, not anywhere close to here. But perhaps that is what you saw. And if so, what a sight to behold.
Well, unsure of what to make of this, but at least you've helped me a bit.
He closes his eyes and nods once. I look forward to your coronation as vassal to Barbaros tomorrow evening.
Very good.
He smiles politely and turns to leave.
Robert will perform a short bow and take his leave as well.
All right. What are Robert's plans for the following night, if any, until his vassalhood?
He'll certainly go to a tavern and procure a meal for him and Albert. He'll keep teaching Albert, and before he has to go to sleep, he'll do what he can to ensure the nuns do not try to flee during the day and cause trouble.
How does he go about making that insurance? Pins their feet to the floor with stakes.
He's not going to... Yeah, he's going to go the supernatural gifts. Oof.
Alright, supernatural, as in...
Yeah, I'm just trying to decide, like, well, if it's just one night, it's at least give him more time to think of what to do with them. He'll just go ahead and use... Let me bring up the roll for it again.
His presence?
Yeah, it'll be presence entrancement.
Mm-hmm. Should be using a blood point, rolling appearance empathy, difficulty of I'm gonna say 3. He's 1 roll for the 3 of them.
Sorry, what was the difficulty?
3.
Okay.
They will be bound in love and devotion to you for the next year. 5 successes.
Wow, they're probably going to go mad. Anyway.
Fortunately for Robert, that's their problem. You're still Humanity 3, aren't you?
Yep.
Okay. Just gotta remind myself of that once in a while. Alright, so we will leave Robert to his entrancement of the nuns. We'll check in with some others. Close that scene. We will see how our London Canaanites are doing. Elined and Nicholas and Talisia. I know Talisia had some plans of, I believe, proselytizing to swell the numbers of her following.
Indeed.
Okay, describe that more for me. What does that look like? What does it entail?
So Talisia would minister to largely to like the detritus, people who are hopeless opium addicts, prostitutes without a brothel that they're beholden to, beggars, people who obviously would be receptive to a kind word and a free bed.
Okay.
With or without strings attached.
Let's give me a manipulation empathy. And difficulty here will be 6. Is this to the effort of building your herd, per se?
I mean, that's the long-term goal, yes.
Okay.
But as far as short-term, more than anything, well, we'll go with herd for right now, because then it just makes sense. Anything else is going to get really, really convoluted.
Alright. So you have a couple dots on herd right now. I'm imagining this being a kind of ongoing thing. This isn't a once and done.
Right.
So I will say that once you have netted, I'll let you make this roll once per month, and once you have netted 10 successes, you can increase your herd from 2 to 3. How's that sound?
Works for me. I will keep tabs.
Alright. And we are now beginning September, the month of September.
I think I'm going to go ahead and throw a willpower down on this.
Okay.
Good call.
Alright. 2 successes. A humble start, which makes sense. It's tough starting out in London. Many people are trying to promise a way forward for the destitute and the hopeless. You have to get your voice above the others and above the church itself. And so you have a slow start in September. Make a note of 2 successes for this month,
Yes.
so to remind me. And then you also had plans of meeting with Bella Matea at some point.
At least making yourself known to Bella, if not necessarily buddying up directly. I don't expect that's a realistic expectation.
All right. And I imagine you go to Elysium for this, rather than try and seek out her home or anything.
Of course, because where else would you find a harpy?
Of course. Oh, that's confusing. I have 2 discords. Anyway. Yes. You will seek out and successfully find Bella Matea. Now, by this point, you've perhaps been in Elysium once or twice, and so you have the lay of the land, this very nice and opulent ballroom. Usually there are musicians in some corner playing a light tune for ambiance. The alcoves in the corners with their small water fountains. The many day lounges and chairs and sofas for various gatherings. And almost without fail, Bella Matea is at the very center, the most prominent seating in all of Elysium, usually surrounded by neonates of varying status, hoping to increase their rank among their peers, and often flanked by the Ancilla Nosferatu Helen. And so, as other nights you've been here, you see the same scene. You have to wade through a small pond of sycophants, varying rims of proximity to Bella. I'll let you describe how you approach, if you approach at this point.
Talisia would enter with a white-robed ghoul behind her. He would be carrying a cask. And she would approach rather confidently, head up, hips swaying, bells jingling. If anyone didn't part ways, she would simply tap their shoulder and smile sweetly, and then slide past.
Make an appearance etiquette roll, difficulty 7, both for your presentation and your ability to carry yourself with poise as you move through the crowd, getting to Bella. Zero successes. Not a botch, but not a success. You cause a small bit of commotion by the time you've reached Bella. There are a few people giving you the ugly eye and muttering. People say, ow! You step on their toe a little bit. It does get Bella's attention as she is holding a goblet of some sort, of some liquid, and turns to you, looking away from her conversation. Ah, good evening to me. Talisia, darling. Now you are an interesting fork in the road. Interesting entrance.
It seemed only fitting that with my arrival in the city, I pay homage to both powers within London. And she'll gesture forward the ghoul.
Bella smiles at your words and at the presentation of the ghoul. Well, I cannot say much to your entrance, though you are rapidly improving, my dear. Although it doesn't do quite so well with my image to be seen with serpents these nights. Although variety is the spice of life, the gossip may twist in my favor with the right leverage.
And who better to apply this leverage than someone so adept at it? I, of course, only wish that you see the gift. I will leave it with the doorman upstairs so that it can be taken to your abode. Unless you would prefer me to have it delivered myself.
Well, that is not required. Perhaps you have arrived just in time to rescue me. Rescue me from a foul creature walking these streets.
Is its name Boredom?
She smirks. That is another creature I must contend with. No, this one is quite tangible. And I might be a strong ally of yours if we get off to the right foot, and you have just begun in the right direction.
Certainly, I will be happy to entertain any requests.
She recrosses her legs and leans back confidently in her day lounge, her arms kind of spread out along the backing. I'm having a bit of a problem with an ancilla in London who publicly and privately disrespected me. Now, I cannot let Elysium go on, having these ragamuffins flying in the face of etiquette, especially not to me. I'd like to send a message.
And what message would you like to send to this, you say, ragamuffin?
Yes. Well, this one thinks he is above the social workings of London simply because he does not participate. He flaunts his rogue nature too much, I think. I wish to only make his own life a bit more uncomfortable.
She'll dismiss the ghoul to do with the cask as she's instructed and leave it with the doorman. And then find a seat on the sofa nearby. Please, share with me what this man has done to offend such beauty?
Oh, I won't bore you with the details. Suffice to say that a lesson can be learned even among those with centuries behind us. And she snaps for one of the neonates around her, who comes forward with a nice vase that was placed on one of the tables, and in the vase is a number of roses. One of the roses is withdrawn. Bella holds the rose and hands it to you. I would like for you to hand petals out, specifically to those Canaanites around the slums and the racks. Those whom Nicholas Ridley might seek to feed on. I have many friends among these places. Handing them a rose petal will be enough. They will know who this comes from. Let them know that someone of Nicholas's description may seek to impinge on their hunting. They should watch their domains more closely.
And would you have a message for Mr. Ridley himself?
Oh, Mr. Ridley, while rude, is intelligent. When he realizes he has nowhere to feed in London proper, he will know who to speak to ease this pressure.
He is also canning and may ignore this warning.
Then he will starve for as long as he is in London. Of course, he is free to leave, but with the moratorium placed by the Covenant, I think he will be without a home if he leaves.
Perhaps, perhaps not. He does haven with a member of the Gauntlet. That is no small thing.
True. It is not. But then it depends upon dear Elined. If she is willing to personally procure feed for him, now that would be an interesting bit of gossip all on its own. Value enough. But I suspect she is not so selfless as to hunt for two.
Out of curiosity, just so I know whether or not I know this thing, would there be any signs of arrangements being made for Robert's herd? I know they weren't meant to take shelter in the manor itself, but I'm not sure how far along that process got.
The tenement building was acquired, and there is work being done.
But there wouldn't be any sign of that in the manor itself.
Nope.
At the very least, this should dissuade thoughtless feeding. Perhaps he simply had an impulse late at night, one he should have checked.
And this is not just for him. It is important that all of Elysium knows that there is a response to not showing deference where deference is due.
And equally important, showing respect to the domains of others, whether social or physical.
Precisely. I knew I could trust you. You struck me immediately as the cunning, wily type.
How is it the English say, I can read the writing on the wall?
It may take you some time to make the rounds to the slums and racks, but I trust you will find those who need these petals. She places the rose in your hand.
I am sure that I have the means necessary to make short work of such a task. Of course, while I am happy to be of service to an officer of London's court, my time is not without its value.
Complete this for me, and I will provide you a small boon. How does that sound for value?
This is amenable to me. For I too have domains to attend to and herds to maintain. I am happy to help in other ways, of course, but they still demand attention, do they not?
So long as you see it done.
Of course. Petals will be spread far and wide within the racks. Those Cainites who are of a mind.
She smiles. I look forward to future arrangements, Talisia.
Madam Bella, a word of advice for the vintage I have provided. Serve it at your next gala. Make sure your mortal guests drink deeply. It is not so adverse an effect as raw opium, but far more long-lasting when it comes to retention of the evening's events.
Both exotic and pragmatic. I admire that. I will do so.
And if you prefer these results to other agents, I will be happy to provide future refills. It's not the right word, but we're going to go with it.
She nods.
For now, I think I will take my leave of you unless you wished me to remain.
You are free to do as you please, my dear.
Aren't we all? However, I did not wish to rudely depart too quickly. she'll rise and curtsy deeply, spreading her skirts wide. And then pivot and make for the door with her rose.
All right. You depart Elysium with your rose and a task. What are Talisia's next intentions?
I think perhaps she would make a pass through the rack to at least distribute the first few petals. See if she can't track a few canites there and do as requested.
All right.
And if she's successful, great. If she's not, that sucks. Either way, she's probably going to make her way to find Nicholas so he's aware of this significance.
No rule required. If you seek these people out and you are showing that you're holding a rose or even rose petals, you are, at one point or another, approached, usually by someone rough-looking, but once in a while you'll find someone surprisingly well-dressed. It seems to be a variety that maintain domain or otherwise supervise certain quarters, slums, and dark streets that are thought to be ignored. And you deliver the message along with the petals?
Yep.
All right. It's received readily. No one seems to question the directive.
In Talisia's mind, if she didn't do it, Bella would definitely find someone else to. So, better it be her, and she can carry the message directly to Nicholas after the fact, rather than he find out the hard way.
All right. After making a trek through some of the darker streets of London, you return to Elined's London Manor. And before I make assumptions, what are Elined and Nicholas immediately planning for September? I know you were thinking about possibly leaving in search of churches for these texts, but I want to know where you were on those plans. We'll start with Nicholas.
I do know that Nicholas is kind of at Elined's mercy as far as leaving London goes, because to the moratorium he can't do it himself. He is, however, willing to wait for the moment, write out some of his research. Until she tells him that she's at least ready to go, or that she doesn't intend to. He is taking Talisia's words to heart, though. He is not shying away from Elysium just because of Bella Matea. She will see him, regardless of what she's got plotting behind his back.
And where does that leave Elined?
I was supposed to hear word back by in a month's time. Yes.
Yes.
How long do I have before I see the results?
Bella Matea told you that It would take about a month, and that was back in August, so sometime in September you're expecting something to occur. Whether that will be immediately visibly obvious or not wasn't really specified. He wasn't very detailed. But you are expecting it supposedly sometime in September.
She will find out where Nicholas is in his research in the meantime. Since she was not down there for his little research improvement with Talisia.
You find him hard at work, it seems like.
How fare you on the progress?
I can only get so far without the knowledge we seek.
Well, you have found an occultist. What is your next stop?
Unfortunately, that occultist was not as much help as I anticipated. She may have other uses. I still wish to return to Canterbury.
You're that set on the church, then?
Who better to know about demons?
You know, there is another individual tied to the church that may help. Though convincing him of that would be a feat in and of itself.
Is that so? And why did you not mention them before?
Because I was fairly certain that he would not want to involve himself with the book.
And has that opinion changed?
I am still certain that he will not take kindly to seeing such a thing.
And who is this mysterious person of which you speak?
He's in Bristol, actually. Surely you may have heard of the Father Tybalt by now.
I don't know, has he?
You actually, I think you might, because you not originally, but you were Bristol before all this, and that's how you met Elined. And let's see. Give me an intelligence. We'll go with politics roll, standard difficulty. This will be kind of your overall knowledge of the court and inhabitants of Bristol.
I'm sorry, I completely missed that roll.
Intelligence, and we'll go politics.
Intelligence, politics, okay.
Standard.
Ooh, I have no politics. Although he does know Hezekiah.
That's true. You do know Hezekiah, so it makes sense narratively that you would know at least of Father Tybalt.
I have heard of the man.
I can assist you to get there, but talking him into it is going to be on you. I only recently improved my reputation with...
Father Tybalt and I have a mutual friend. Same as you and I. If anyone can convince him, it would be me. I'm ashamed I did not consider it before.
Ashamed you did not consider that friend for looking at the book.
He is unfortunately predisposed with his own matters.
True, with the Giovanni crawling around.
But Tybalt is more accessible, and Bristol is my home territory.
Precisely. General question, how long would it take to get to Bristol?
Good question. Let me open my map. Alright, it's about 40 miles west, which isn't terribly far. If you rode quickly by horseback, you could get there in maybe a day. But by carriage, it would take you probably 3 days.
It is not that far there. We should be able to get back in time for my receiving word on what all has transpired with my plan.
That is excellent.
And some of the troops nearby do need some exercise.
I'm not inconveniencing you terribly, am I?
No. I have noticed a while ago that some of Judith's previous forces are getting restless.
And perhaps a brief jaunt will be just what they need.
Perhaps. I will set about collecting the ones that seem the worse for wear, as far as the restlessness goes, and leave you to what you're doing.
I shall make the necessary preparations.
Oh, and before I go, I encourage you not to trust Talisia, as she calls herself, that much. We have yet to know her true motives yet, after all.
I shall not have difficulty with that request. I trust no one.
Good. And with that, she will leave the basement and head to the castle. Fort. It's fort/castle.
The Tower of London?
No. How many hours are
Oh.
left in the night before I go?
Oh, Edmonton Castle. The village.
Yes.
We'll say it's pretty early in the evening, and actually, as you reach the door to your own manor, you see that Talisia is actually here. Just about to walk up to the doorstep.
Her smile falters for a moment before she forces it back. What brings about this pleasant occurrence?
Your need to fabricate some notion of pleasantries is, how do you say, insulting. I merely bring word for Master Ridley. Circumstances surrounding certain individuals should be brought to his attention, and she'll hold up the bereft rose stem.
Would Elined, someone who doesn't really go to court all that often, know who that is attached to?
Possibly. You could make an intelligence, politics, roll difficulty 8. It'd be pretty tough for you to figure it out, but certain symbols and social mores might have caught on to Elined. 2 successes. You certainly think that this is related to a toreador of some status related to Elysium.
You bring word of a toreador, then.
I bring word of a great offense done, and a greater retribution exacted.
Fine, let us go find Nicholas.
You really ought to loosen your pretense in your own home. It does not become you. But she'll fall in line right behind her.
She will not respond to that and continue on.
Alright. Nicholas, you're trying to work, and yet people keep bothering you down this basement. You hear a pair of footsteps this time.
I apologize for bothering you again so soon, but it seems we have a visitor with some news.
News that concerns me.
She says so.
Nicholas will look up from his work.
Talisia will drop the bare stem on the desk in front of him. I understand you have been perhaps a bit indiscreet with your choice of hunting grounds.
Is that so?
It is. I have been asked to pass word along that the holders of domain in these areas have been made aware of your predilections.
And with her bearing that rose stem, it is likely a Toreador at fault.
I would encourage you to, how do you say, make amends with Lady Bella Matea. It may not be enough simply to appear in Elysium, but perhaps find a mutually agreeable solution to your disagreements, whatever they may be.
I'm not certain what her game might be, but if she sent you to try to handle this situation...
In fact, she did no such thing. She sent me to deliver petals to the holders of said domains, though it is well established that I have a relationship with the Gauntlet, and thus it is not unseemly for me to make a stop here after carrying out this request.
Would it not seem unreasonable? I'm certain she wouldn't have wanted me to know what she had planned.
I am certain that her intention was for you to find out eventually, though she was not quite so specific as to her directions.
Of course not. She would have had you followed.
Oh, she almost certainly has, but be that as it may, it makes no difference. I have carried out her request and simply added a step in the end.
Not a week new to the city and already learning to play the jihad. How unfortunate. I had thought more of you.
Have you forgotten so quickly my parentage?
Not forgotten, chosen to ignore. Every man is worth a chance to prove himself, regardless of his ancestry. I regret to say, in this case, the apple has not fallen far from the tree.
We are all creatures of this evening, and must play these games in order to survive. The faster you realize that, the more completely you will flourish.
It is precisely because I won't play these games that she has such a difficulty reconciling my presence in the city.
And what do you imagine the result would have been had she found some other sycophant to carry this message about the rack?
It is true I might have discovered her duplicitousness in a more difficult way, so I suppose I should thank you.
You will find hunting in the rack quite difficult. If you struggle to procure sustenance, You can find me at my tenement building where you will be welcome.
Why would you put your neck out for me?
Perhaps to prove that I am more than simply a product of my lineage.
Then perhaps I will reserve casting my judgment in stone for now.
She smiles a bit and tosses her hair over one shoulder. If I were so easily judged, I would be a pale shadow of my teachings. I did also wish to share with you a thought I had. There are churches in London, yes? I may have acquaintances who could gain entrance and seek out the information there which we desire.
That would be most helpful. Does the book interest you that much?
The book interests the Gauntlet, and I am bound to provide aid and guidance in such matters to the Gauntlet.
There isn't much of the gauntlet left.
And as I advised before, it is best to destroy the thing, and if you must have your answers before such an act is committed, then I will find said answers for you.
For what price?
As I said, the destruction of the book. It is in everyone's best interest to banish such a thing from this realm.
Then do this thing. Elined and I seek further answers outside London. Unfortunately, Bellamite's little game will have to wait, at least for a few days.
Do you require my advice upon reaching your destination?
Elined, what do you think?
I think you arriving in that city, another city, could be ill-advised. We know not how the other cities are going to accept one of your lineage.
Perhaps, but if I arrive in the company of the Gauntlet Lord, then they would have very little legs to stand on. I think.
Still, it would be much safer for you to reign here. In this city, I mean.
She'll shrug a bit. As you say. But I wonder if... How do you say? If you are aware of anyone seeking succor, such as I might provide, I would ask that you send them to seek me out. I have need of those cast adrift. You see, my own tenement building is in such a state that I would be willing to employ a few additional bodies.
I can think of none of the description at this time.
Can't you?
No, I can't, for they have already found a residence.
But wouldn't their loyalties to us be further cemented by giving them a reasonable standard of living? One that they can provide for themselves?
I suppose. But I will make this very clear. Do not ghoul them. They are not your property.
I give only what is asked.
Then yes, we know of a few who seek honest labor.
Do not turn them into your herd. They are not your property.
I turn no one away who seeks earnest solace. Would you force me to turn them away should they earnestly request a place of their own?
They have a place of their own. I already saw to that.
So your answer would be yes. Cast adrift that which is already adrift.
My answer is they already have a place to remain.
She shrugs a bit. So be it. But it sounds as though they are not your herd either.
That is correct. They belong to the other member of the gauntlet you have not met yet.
And why is he not providing for them?
That is something I personally want to know myself.
And if he cannot provide a satisfactory answer, may I then provide them a home?
They already have a home.
You misunderstand my question. You have provided for your companion in the expectation that he fell afoul or made poor judgment. Would you return this herd to him if you found that his judgment is still flawed and his herd would be further damaged as a result of returning them to him.
I believe that is a choice for them and himself.
We agree on half of this. But I agree to your terms. I will make no overt overtures of claiming these people. I will not force them into servitude that they do not wish, and I will not imply that they are not free to leave when they wish. But I will also not chase them away.
She will look over at Ridley because Ridley had an interest in these castaways as well.
Ridley shakes his head slightly. If you think you can give them better than the master who abandoned them, then so be it. If that is what they wish.
However, if he returns and wishes to claim his property, you may have a bit of a social debacle to deal with.
As you say, I do not expect he has been gone long enough for the bonds of blood to wear thin with his ghouls.
They are still quite loyal to him. Although I have already planted the seeds of doubt.
It is an interesting thing, the blood oath. It persists in spite of one's conscious loyalties. This is why we have taught our children to treasure those that serve, for they cannot make a informed choice as to whether or not to obey their master. And therefore, the onus and responsibility for fair treatment falls squarely on the head of the regiment.
Tell me, were you ever in a position of servitude?
Indeed, when I was taken from my home and brought to the temple in Hispania, I spent many years as an initiate and a neophyte within the temple.
Not quite what I'm referring to.
Is it not, though? I cleaned floors, curried messages, gave my own blood to feed the masters of the temple.
And that is the conclusion you came through all of that.
In return for my service, the masters of the temple taught to me the ways of the evening, granted me great pleasures and great powers, and taught me all I know of the night. And in return for my loyal service, brought me into this unlife that we now share. Yes, I served well, and was recognized for this service.
Well, this has been enlightening.
In a way, I suppose.
I hope often to provide enlightenment for those in need. This is why I say to your Gertrude, blessed are those that serve.
More than you might think. Now then, I believe this concludes your business.
More than. Though, if you have other questions, I am always happy to be of service. She again curtsies her low dip and sways her way up the stairs to depart.
When she's gone, Nicholas turns to Elined. I hope you don't think me foolish enough to take everything she said at face value.
Of course not.
I do believe she was willing to get into our good graces by betraying Belmatea, at least in some small way. But still, the Harpy's revenge is sinister. She would seek to starve me out.
That is why I am insisting keeping Robert's outcast herd at the recently acquired building. That way, if you need to feed, they are there.
I do hope she knows nothing of them. But it is a vain hope, perhaps. She has spies everywhere, I assume.
Most likely.
Let her think what she will for now until we return. I will sort things out then.
Very well. And Elined will head back up to go about her business that she was initially going to go to.
So Elined departs for the village of Edmonton to visit the castle and the men therein.
Yep.
It will take you even less time to reach this village than it would to go to Bristol. What specifically does Elined wish to do for the men when she arrives?
She wishes to oversee and see which ones are the most restless.
Alright, let me look at my notes here. Okay. So the man in charge of this contingent is named Brandon Carter. He seems to be the most well controlled. He's trying to keep order as best he can over his men, but as described before, it's difficult with nothing to do. Soldiers, they get violent, they get drunk, they stop following their routines. As more and more it dawns on them it doesn't matter. And when you inquire about which are the most restless, he points out, or he gives you the names of 5 of the knights who are most often either oversleeping, ignoring their calisthenics, they're ignoring their duties, not going on patrol, or coming in late, things like that. So you have a list of these 5 men-at-arms, I should say, not true knights, men-at-arms.
And to protect us on the journey, I estimate 5 to 10 would be sufficient.
The journey to Bristol?
Yes.
Yeah, you have a small group. 5 men is fine. I mean, it kind of depends on how much you want to do. You know that there are nobles who ride with 50 to 60, 80 men.
Mm-hmm. She'll take those 5 with her. Tell them to ready their things for travel.
The sergeant, Brandon Carter, seems a bit uncertain. You can see it on his face when he kind of looks and, turns to move to go deliver the orders. Maybe unsure if they're even going to listen. But he agrees to this. He also inquires before leaving if they will be paid in the coming year, as they were informed of a possible cessation to pay after the end of the year. You realize that news has not reached them that Judith is gone.
Not by their former employer, no, but she will make arrangements.
That's enough for the sergeant, and he agrees to this. Since you've worked with him before and trained his men before, he has some trust in you. And
she wants 2 of the members to, guard her house while she's away. Reside in some of the guest quarters so she can make sure that people don't try to infiltrate.
Alright, so you set 2 of these men-at-arms to guard in the manor, and 3 will accompany you.
And 1 guarding the tenement building, just in case a certain someone goes poking around.
Alright, 2 to your manor, 1 to the tenement building housing the herd and the ghouls, and 2 to follow you.
Oh, no, the 5 are gonna follow me. Those are 3 entirely separate ones.
Oh, I see. Gotcha. So you're sending the less rowdy men to stay at your manor. And okay, that makes more sense.
I don't want my manor sacked.
Okay. That makes more sense. Let me make it
more well-behaved ones for those tasks.
Yeah. Okay, noted. And then you return to the manor. And you are going to... I'm sorry, I couldn't follow. Are you going to Bristol or Canterbury now?
Bristol.
With Nicholas.
Aye.
Okay. All right. And the 2 of you will depart. And at this we will end the scene. And we'll take our 15-minute break here and come back in 15 and pick it up again.
Cool.
Alright, do you got anybody, everybody? Oops. Alright, do we got everybody?
I think so.
Mostly.
No!
Yep, I'm here.
Excellent. Then we will resume. Or resume, if you will. Alright. So we return following Robert the following night as he returns to Castle Chester to be amongst the ranks of Barbarossa's knights. When you enter the Great Hall, Robert, you are escorted away from the Great Hall and down to a private chamber. It looks very holy. There are many images and stained glass of various Christianic symbols. There are many busts and statues. Looks like this might have been a chapel, but perhaps converted to other purposes. The guards who escort you leave as soon as you are brought downstairs, and you see several people. Magister Tredian Swift, of course, is standing at the end of this hall of columns, and you also see an older Ancilla, Sir Isaac Lavelle. And last, the center is Prince Barbaros. They stand together and seem to wait you quietly and solemnly.
Robert will begin approaching.
All of the faces are very dour. The Magister Tredian Swift is first to break the silence. Good evening, Audevere.
Good evening.
Prince Barbaros as well as Sir Isaac Lavelle are here. Sir Lavelle is present as he is the foremost knight amongst Lord Barbaros's retinue and observes all new knights. Before we begin, now would be your opportunity to change your mind. There is no return. Once you swear your fealty, we wish for it to be very clear. Oath breakers will not be tolerated.
I am set to my purpose.
He looks from you to Prince Barbaros, who nods once. Commence then. Tredian Swift looks to you. Please take a knee, Robert.
And Robert will begin to do so.
Barbaros approaches and stands over you. You can see that he has a very fine gilded sheathed sword, which he withdraws the blade from, with a hilt that has the rampant line prominent at the crossguard. But it's Tredian Swift who speaks to you to this side. Please repeat after me. I promise on my faith that I will be in the future faithful to the Lord.
I promise on my faith that I will in the future be faithful to the Lord.
And never cause him harm, and will observe my homage to him completely.
And never cause him harm, and will observe my homage to him completely.
Against all persons, in good faith and without deceit.
Against all persons in good faith and without deceit.
At this, Barbaros levies the sword to your neck. By my power as Prince of Chester, and Lord of the fiefs over Cheshire, Lancashire, Westmoreland, and Cumberland, I knight thee. And he moves his sword from one side to the other. Sir Robert de Vere, Knight of the realm of Chester. Arise, Sir Robert.
And Robert does so, a smile upon his face.
You see a smile on Sir Isaac Lavelle as well as Barbaros. Magister Tredian Swift reaches over and hands you a goblet. A pewter goblet with a dark, viscous red liquid in it.
And not willing to back out now, Robert will drink from the goblet.
And as you drink, you taste the sweet nectar, the almost overwhelming pleasure of vitae you have never tasted so sweetly of. This could be nothing but elder blood. And as you're drinking, you vaguely hear the words of Tredian over you. A token, a symbol of your fealty, committed in blood.
So be it.
He takes the goblet from you and turns again, holding out two things which he has withdrawn. One is a folded cloth, very neatly folded, of fine crimson. It appears to be a cloak, and you can see the rampant lion across it. And atop that is a ring of gold with a similar sigil, but unique in its design. And before he fully hands it out to you, he again speaks. Or rather, Barbaro speaks. You have great value to me, Sir Robert. Not only for your deeds, past and future, but also for your potential. I would heed you not wear this ring, as the one you wear already grants you entrance to halls, which we will not have. To be known publicly as a knight of my realm would not do my service. I would have you hide your knighthood until this war is done.
Robert nods in acknowledgement.
And so while this is presented to you, you shall not don the garments of my knights. Think not of it as a dishonor. Think of it as a unique service.
But of course.
And when this atrocious war is done, and Ragnar is smote into the ground, then tale will spread of your purpose, of your role in the victory, and your name will be known, and you may proudly display your loyalty.
Robert once again gives a big smile and nods in acknowledgement.
I wish you fortune in your travels, Sir Robert. Should you need safe passage or harbor, the realm of Chester may be your bosom.
So shall it be, my lord.
And I look forward to hearing more of the details of Ragnar's demise. He smiles a faint grin.
And Robert can't help but return the smile. And shall be all the eager to present it.
Isaac Lavelle breaks his silence for once as the ceremony concludes, looking to you. You should be very careful, Sir Robert. Half of the gauntlet is now amongst ash. It seems fate is not in the favor of the Covenant. Tread carefully while you ride.
And I shall heed this warning.
I look forward to future nights where we might ride together. He offers a faint smile as he begins to step past you.
And Robert lets him pass.
What next are your plans, Sir Robert?
To reconvene with the Gauntlet. I've been away for some time. I plan to travel to London next.
Prudent. He nods a couple times. Understand this. While Ragnar is my sworn enemy, I hold no great ill will toward the other Covenant members. Nor do I wish ill to fall upon them, as when this war is over and I am seen vindicated, I will wish for there to be peace between us. See that you do not add to discontent or discord in their courts. It is only Ragnar whom I wish smote, and those who follow her.
Very good. I expected nothing less.
He nods to you once more, and then starts walking past you, almost through you, but with your etiquette, you know to step out of the way. And he's followed by Treddy and Swift in tow.
So Robert's now left alone. He'll gather the belongings that were given to him and begin to head out as well.
All right. What next will Robert do?
Keeping true to his word, he'll seek out passage to London, though he will want to perhaps secure a permanent residence here first and keep the new belongings he has here someplace safe.
All right. A short conversation with Treddy and Swift, the Seneschal, clarifies that you are given domain, and it's plotted out on a map of the city. You have feeding rights, and the domain is quite sizable, and it does include a new manse for you, So you have a new residence with which you may hold your belongings. You can count that as, we'll say, 2 dots of domain. And the income from the domain there will provide you a base of 2 dots of resources.
Okay.
So you mean to leave for London?
As the next path, he'll take Albert and the nuns with him on this trip.
Alright, traveling by carriage, I assume?
Mm-hmm.
Alright. One moment. It is quite a trek. It's about a fortnight from Chester down to London. So you will arrive right around mid-September, early mid-September. First, we must reconcile what happens to our other protagonists. So we will end this scene on the site of Robert and his entourage in a nicely appointed carriage cresting a hill with the sight of the large city of London on the horizon, making his way in. Transition to follow the rest. Okay, Bristol. So we follow Elined and Nicholas Ridley once more, returning to Bristol after some hiatus. Maybe the closest thing Nicholas has to a home in the British Isles. Do the two of you stop at Elined's sire's manor, or do you go straight to seek out Father Tybalt?
Well, first thing we have to do is make our presence known.
Which means seeing Kincaid.
It does. Alright. Staying true to canine etiquette. You go in search of Kincaid. He's not hard to find. It is large palatial estate, and you pass by the signature giant apple tree, which hangs its low, delectable, almost glistening red apples. Make your way into the hall. It's not terribly long before you're given audience to the prince, who's not one to make a gauntlet lord wait, and accompanied by his 2 associates, Ethra and Emmanuel. What a pleasant surprise, although I must say on less than pleasant circumstances, given our recent loss. For that, you do have my sympathies.
Yes. Now the gauntlet is cut in half, it seems.
I recall voicing support for you at one of our earliest meetings amongst the Covenant. I continue to have faith that you will help to lead us through these dark nights. He offers a very small smile from his thin lips, which does not reach his eyes.
She will give a polite smile in return. And I will see to doing so.
May I ask what brings you back to your home city, my dear?
In short, the late Judith, Thomas, whatever you want to refer to them as, had a small militia, and they were getting rather restless. I was taking them around to make sure they don't get too wired up by restlessness.
Ah, running the horses, as they say.
Indeed.
And your companion, Mr. Ridley? And his eyes turn to you sharply.
I've come to see an old friend.
I would hope that all citizens of Bristol would consider me, their prince, a friend. Though I imagine you speak of someone else.
You have always shown yourself to be a noble and wise leader. And I would like to consider you my friend. But in truth, I am here to visit Father Tybalt.
Ah, the father. Of course. I do hope you'll stay a bit longer this time. Both of you.
I plan to stay as long as business allows.
As you say, though I would caution too much focus on one's tasks and missions may strain the soul. It is important for our kind to stretch. And he kind of motions out with his arms to each side. I am holding a very fine gala in the next fortnight. One which is very near and dear to my heart. Perhaps between your business, you will join me.
You would offer us both an invitation, my liege.
I would. He says that as his eyes stare unblinkingly at Elined.
Elined knows that turning this down is a major social faux pas, but she really doesn't want to go.
If you want, because your character may be more politically inclined, if you want a way to nuance your way out, you can give me either a charisma or a manipulation and etiquette. Difficulty 7. Otherwise, you can just roleplay it.
Same roll either way. Standard difficulty?
7. It's basically Elined coming up with the appropriate words to excuse herself from this. Alright, so 3 successes. You feel like you can avoid the etiquette and social faux pas pitfalls of getting out of this. What do you say?
I am humbled by your offer. However, the Anarchs have me on a very strict timeline. They wish to see results much faster than I have previously anticipated.
The intensity of his stare decreases somewhat. Ah, of course. I had nearly forgotten of their existence. Things are different here in Bristol. So removed from the plights of the Anarchs. Very well. Perhaps next year. He again smiles.
Perhaps.
Then I bid you both a good evening, and a pleasant stay in my city.
And a good evening to you as well.
Were you going to say something?
Oh, I was, but I didn't want to interrupt you either.
Yeah, go for it.
I was just going to say Nicholas will give him a bow. This is one of the few men that he actually respects.
And Elined will curtsy.
And during this time, Ether and Emmanuel seem like they're, even without any checks, it's pretty obvious they're a bit uncomfortable. They shift where they stand. They look between each other. It's not clear what exactly they're experiencing or projecting, but it's not pleasure. And once you give your pleasantries and formalities to dismiss yourself, the 3 of them exit. And you are eventually returned to the streets of Bristol.
I trust you know where to find the good father.
That's a good question. Does he know where to find him?
I think because you know Hezekiah, you know where Father Tybalt is.
I know where to find him.
All right. I will go visit my sire, and you can go about your business.
When shall we meet again?
That depends. How long do you think your research will take?
That, I suppose, will depend on how much he knows.
To be safe, we can meet on tomorrow evening.
At least to update each other on where we stand.
Yes.
Very well. Until tomorrow evening.
Until tomorrow.
Alright, and Nicholas, you leave in search of Father Tybalt?
Indeed.
Okay. Doesn't take you very long to reach the small chapel. You know you've found him in the past, or at least seen him briefly on your way to visit with Hezekiah. You have not had many long discussions with the man. You simply know basically of his presence and existence. So I will say you find the chapel. There are a couple lights on from what you can tell. It's a small building, all white, mostly wood, with a tower near the back and a cross at the top. But the doors are closed right now.
Nicholas will politely knock.
Alright. You knock at the door knockers. It makes a few heavy thuds, and you're waiting for a few minutes before the doors creak open. And you see this man. A generally small appearing man with a narrow face, black hair, maybe late 40s or early 50s. He's fit and thin, with strong fingers that you can immediately tell are splotched with some ink as he opens the door to look out to you. Hello?
Greetings, Father Tybalt. Do you remember me?
Ah, you're... One of, an associate of mine. An associate of my companion. He kind of looks nervously outside beyond you to the streets and the alleys, as though looking for anybody else might be hearing.
No one has come with me, and I do not think I was followed. There would be no reason.
What brings you to my door?
A matter of some scholarly import, but one which would not interest most of those who reside in the city.
He raises a bushy black silver eyebrow. Without any more words, he opens up the door further to let you in.
I must caution you, Father, before I enter this holy place. What I have in my possession is an object of pure evil.
He stops as he looks at you and Are you obviously carrying like a cloth-covered book or something?
He probably got it in a rucksack hanging around his shoulder, but yes, he's
Okay.
got something heavy.
My son, there are many who would claim all of our kind are quite damned. Fortunately, this chapel does not bear the strength of will that other similar buildings do, which repel us. This chapel may serve as well as any study or university.
Very good, thank you. And he will enter.
He closes the door swiftly behind you. You enter the chapel, which is quite dimly lit. It's a very simple, standard structure for a chapel with a nave going down with pews on each side. The altar on a raised dais at the end, columns aligning the walls, and mostly open space above you. You can see where the tower reaches up at the end. Although you notice the kind of trap door that goes down to maybe a basement or a cellar behind the altar. And Father Tybalt starts making his way down the pews.
I always found chapels quite beautiful in the night, under the light of the candles.
He speaks as he continues down the nave. Yes, I chose this for a number of reasons. While it may not have the natural aura, which is quite uncomfortable, admittedly, I find the imagery and the symbolism here is as much refreshing as it is repelling to the wrong sort. There are those in this city whom I am certain would not set foot here.
Your privacy must be exquisite.
He nods as he reaches the altar. I have heard your words of pure evil in the past. You'll have to forgive my appearance of dismissal. There are many things which I have seen and studied, which from a perspective could be seen as misunderstood.
Then let us hope that this is that, and not something worse.
He nods and gestures for the altar, or to place it there.
Nicholas unslings the rucksack and opens it, pulling out the cloth-wrapped book, which he'll lay on the altar and gently unwrap.
Alright, you unwrap the tome until it's visible, sitting on the cloth on the altar. Father Tybalt looks it over. He retrieves what looks like maybe a monocle. It's like a circular glass piece. He uses it to inspect this book, and you can tell it does seem to magnify some of the letters. Very old text. You've gone to lengths to preserve it, I see.
I am merely borrowing it, but its previous owner did take good care.
His old fingers move across the letters. Where did you say this book came from?
It was found by a companion of mine. I know not precisely where. But I know this book has something to do with some visions I've been experiencing of late.
He gingerly flips the pages, reading with increasing scrutiny and interest and concern. Very troubling words in this book. What is it exactly you hope to do here?
I wish to know what business, or rather, how this book is connected to the visions I've been having. It speaks of a demon, and I have seen one in my dreams. Shall I show you?
He stops looking through the monocle and looks up to you. Show me.
Indeed. And he'll take out the parchment that he scribbled the picture of the mound upon, with its leering face. As poor as it is.
Given how much time you've been working on this, I would say you've probably refined it a bit and made it much more clear. Very troubling indeed. Well, I have in my time read some texts on the topic of the devil's servants. Unfortunately, I cannot claim to be an expert on the subject, and it was approximately just over a century ago. All the texts the Church of England had on these topics were moved to one central location.
And where is that?
The city Norwich.
Nicholas pauses, looking at the book, then looking at Father Tybalt. Tell me you're jesting.
I do not. I spoke with the good Alexander Hitchcock of London. It was a most concerning event. We had noticed similar trends in the movement of these texts around the same time, but were unable to detect who or what was causing this. We thought perhaps among the kind themselves, the clergy responding to the events of the Tower of London. Of course you're familiar with this, yes?
Only vaguely. Perhaps you can fill me in.
Yes. It was a very dark time for England. It was attributed to a Tremere neonate of all things, one of the usurper's ilk. No one is clear how, and of course none of the Tremere themselves have explained what many who were around remember that night. The Tower of London was set afire. A winged woman, wreathed in blood, slaying dozens of men. The Tremere himself cast flight above the castle in view of all. And with his power he drew the Lord of England and Prince of London, Adam, destroyed him. Destroyed him in the air as carnage reeked below.
A neonate, you say? How troubling.
Yes, troubling indeed. The aftermath. He just shakes his head. Awful. It was chaos. Bands of kind hunting us, hunting the devils, anyone that seemed different. We went aground. They were certain there'd be more demons. So that's what we all saw. It could be nothing but a demon. A demon which smote so many men and did not die. The burning times. Many of us lost our own lives. Many elders sacrificed children and children our elders. No one trusted anyone. It is part of why the Covenant formed. To bring unity, strength. No one city could hope to control all of it. And so the 7 most powerful elders came together. An agreement of principles to safeguard against such things, against disruption. Disruption that would endanger us all.
This is a bit of history I've never heard. It is both intriguing and unsettling. If the whole of England could be brought to its knees by one of these demons, which surely until now I thought only fictions in the Bible. Tales to scare children into their belief in God.
That's precisely what we thought as well. Of course, it's not widely known. Many suppose it was a spirit, a curse, God's wrath. Each of the Covenant cities and their princes went to great efforts to spread disinformation, to spread uncertainty. It was hard, nearly impossible task to make the citizens of London simply disbelieve. But the concerted effort of all the princes was enough to eventually bring the mobs and the fires down low enough where we could hunt again. If we had not unified and agreed to these terms, if the princes had not done so much to quell this, the Inquisition might have eradicated all of us. But still they lurk. We know the Inquisition never left, even after. They hide as we hide. But they seem not to have forgotten as many of the other kind have. I pray that this does not signal a return. He looks down at the text.
I certainly have no interest in summoning any demons. Just an understanding why one is vexing me. And not just me, but others of my blood as well. Most of whom seem rather complacent.
I cannot speak to your blood or the visions that your kind might have. It's not something I can attest to experiencing. Unfortunately, if you wish further texts upon this, they reside now in Norwich. It was shortly after the Tower of London and the ensuing chaos. These texts all began to concentrate in this one city.
And was the Prince Sebastian printed at that time as well?
He was.
It would be very dangerous for me to try to go to Norwich. Certainly you have heard of affairs of the Covenant of late.
Yes, announcement has reached Elysium here of the great concern that Norwich has been ousted from the Covenant. There's great alarm over its prince and its dealings. I try as much as I may to avoid the politics and the jihad, though it seems perhaps a naive choice. I'm never truly left alone.
I am beginning to experience the same. And all I truly wish is to be left alone. But tell me, do you know anything about the demon this particular book mentions? The fourth true name attributed to it, surely a forgery.
I am sorry to say that beyond the events of a century past, I cannot claim much demonology knowledge. In this name, it does not strike true with any of the great names of infamy that I have read. Whether if that is by intention or deceit, I cannot say.
Despite this, Father Tybalt, you have been a great help to me.
He smiles weakly. If you continue to persist on this quest, may God have mercy on your soul, child. I do not envy the task and horrors ahead.
There are other demons that compel me forward, unfortunately. Those which I cannot fight, for they reside in mine own head. If I do not see it through, I might never awaken from the fugue that befalls me.
I see. And I wish you Godspeed.
I have no illusion that if I go to Norwich I shall never return. But I must try.
He nodded a couple of times, looking solemn.
Tend well these nights, Father Tybalt. For each night that we walk the earth is a blessing.
He smiles more at that. Tend well indeed, and safe travel.
Perhaps you will. And he pauses for a moment as if this is really difficult for him to say, because it is. Keep me in your prayers.
I will do just.
Then many pleasant evenings ahead. And with that, he will depart, taking the book with him, of course.
All right. So you depart, leaving Father Tybalt and the chapel behind you. And back into the night you go. Meanwhile, Elined is busy. Doing what?
Elined was going to go see her son.
All right. His manor hasn't gone anywhere, of course. The staff there allow you in, as of course you're a known quantity. You make your way up the foyer and through the halls, and eventually find your sire in his study. Yes.
My apologies for not sending word before visit.
He has his back turned to you. The door is actually wide open when you step in. There's no one else there. He turns, looking a bit surprised, and then smiling faintly. Elined. No apology necessary, my dear. It is good to see you.
She has a genuine smile on her face. It's good to see you as well.
These are dark nights. I hear only troubling news.
Indeed. But there is a silver lining. There is the current alliance.
The alliance.
The Anarchs and the Covenant have come to a ceasefire since they have a common enemy right now.
A tenuous alliance at best. Let us hope it lasts.
I hope so as well, though. Only time will tell at this point.
News has reached me of Norwick, the goings-on on
Yes.
Sebastian.
Yes.
With half
He
the
had-
gauntlet. Go ahead.
He has put his own ambitions before all else to the detriment of the other city.
It is a strange thing. Would not have guessed Sebastian, a man of so poor reasoning as to put ambition ahead of all. With half the gauntlet deceased, I had become concerned that you would be targeted next.
There have been a few poking around, but so far I have avoided them. And I know not if this ambition lies with Sebastian himself, or if it is this Basileus fellow. I suspect it's Basileus pulling the strings if as opposed to Sebastian.
It is a dangerous web. And what of the other princes? Surely you travel more than I.
Yes. Ragnar and Barbaros are still at odds. Prince Ambrose has been most reasonable with all that's going on.
A pleasant surprise.
Indeed. I may have judged him too quickly upon meeting him.
An easily made mistake that I have made of many of the Bruja. I also hear word from my uncle, Cortez. He reports some business with his child returning.
Yes, that.
He spoke of you. He says he only knew the attack was coming because you had mentioned a possibility.
Yes. Federico, who was going by the alias of Saracino and working for the Anarchs, was captured and interrogated before the alliance happened.
Oh. Seems my cousin Rodrigo is no longer walking this world after Cortez was through with him. But he spoke well of you.
Yes. Cortez is a bit harsh at first, but reasonable.
He comes from a very distant time. It is how I recall him as well.
But Rodrigo, all through that interrogation, talked of nothing else but getting revenge in the most unforgivable way possible.
He nods solemnly.
As such, it was my duty to warn him.
You follow the Via Regalis well. I'm proud. Do you mean to stay here long?
I do not know how long my companion's research will take. I suspect it will not take long.
A new companion, then?
Yes. He is one of the Malkavians and has assisted with investigations so far.
The Cassandras have been unstable in the past. Gives me some pause, although I will admit I trust them more than the ilk of Kincaid still.
He was actually a resident in this city before assisting. You may have heard of him. He goes by the name of Nicholas Ridley.
The name is vaguely familiar.
His derangement is a more subtle one, thankfully. He claims not to have one, but I find that hard to believe.
Better to know what would compel him to action, so that you may use that as needed, or avoid it.
Indeed.
Then what of the other remaining Gauntlet member, the Lord de Vere?
I have not seen Robert in some time. I know he traveled north and nothing more of that.
It seems you are quite isolated then. The gauntlet broken a second time.
So it would seem.
Oh. I expect, should you prevail in all of this, perhaps I will reform the gauntlet, with you at the center. He offers a faint smile.
She ponders that for a moment and goes, perhaps that is not an outcome I thought of at the end of this.
Why would they not? You are otherwise free, unbound to any lord or lady. The Covenant could use someone like that.
That much is true.
Are you trying to lie to him?
No, she is not.
Well, just because Elined did swear fealty to Ragna.
Yes, but the other princes don't know that.
And neither does he. But
Exactly.
but you know it. I just wanted to know if you were intentionally trying to keep that a secret or not to your sire.
She's definitely not talking about it. Though, more concerning is there was a holy individual that was captured in terror. A mortal that claimed to have some surprising abilities tied to the faith.
Now, those you must be very careful of, Elined.
Well, there's some comfort in knowing that he no longer walks the earth. However, he does have allies in Canterbury.
I assure you he has more allies beyond Canterbury. Perhaps in this very city.
Perhaps. But I was only speaking of the ones I knew of.
To encounter hunters is for a cask of oil to encounter flame. Even if quenched, it is dangerous. It brings more fire to it.
I know enough to know they had interest in 3 cities outside of Canterbury. Those interests are in York, Lincoln, and I believe the last location is the very one they're in now. Am I correct?
Let's see, let me check my notes. I'm gonna go with yes.
Yes, and the last location is unfortunately in this very city that they hold interest. I have given the reports to the powers that be, and hopefully it was distributed properly, so the other princes might know of it.
If they are wise, they will do nothing. Much that I would wish we could crush them all simply to eradicate the threat. He shakes his head. I would not risk all to do battle with them.
Nor was I suggesting that.
For them to capture even one of us would be damning.
I've tried in the past, though if they have succeeded or not is yet to be seen.
From what I understand, there are many a full-fledged in London from which to pick up.
That is true. More the ones that have not learned how to properly clean up after themselves.
Well, let us hope we simply do not face them. There is some other business which I must attend to tonight, my dear. It is good to see you again.
It is good to see you as well, and I will leave you to your business.
He smiles and nods to you as he makes his way out of his study. What else are Elined's plans?
Does she know if her estranged brother is still in the city?
You do not. You do not know if he is or is not.
Does she know where he used to hang out, at least?
Let me look over his notes to remind myself, since he doesn't come up very often. You know that... I'll just give you some more background on your brother, Guy Bassett. You know that he was kind of an amateur politician. He was a deacon in life. He tried to attain power, but failed, and on life he tried to gain political power and failed at that. And his multiple failures earned his sire, your sire, his kind of disownment. And you know that your brother was somewhat bitter about his lot in life, and bitter towards Father Tybalt for his influence in the clergy. He spent a lot of time trying to kiss up in court to the prince, and so he would spend a lot of time there. You didn't see him when you went to present tonight. And you know he has a child that's still a neonate, Santiago, who supposedly was some kind of knight. And you suspect he's probably envious and bitter towards you because of your nomination to the gauntlet over him. Does that answer your...
Yes, it does.
All that to say, usually in court, otherwise, who knows?
And to be fair, she has never tried to seek out her brother before.
Exactly. What are Elined's plans overall now?
Getting lodgings for the men. And going around in some off hope that she might run into him.
Into your brother?
Yeah.
Okay. It's not hard to find... I mean, your sire's house is very large and could easily house them along with his servants. As for your brother, stalking the street in search of him, we will probably come back to. And Nicholas, do you intend to return to the manor to speak with Elined or other plans?
No other plans at the moment. He's excited about possibilities of Norwich, as dangerous as that seems, but here, nothing, so he'll wait.
Righteous. Alright. And I will pause our scene here before you rejoin Elined. And we will jump back to London. And catch up with Talisia. What are Talisia's plans now?
For the time being, given that Nicholas and Elined have departed and she really doesn't have anyone to advise, she's going to focus on setting the adrift herd to work. Of course, flexing a little influence over them as well. Somewhere in there, she'd, of course, report back to Bella that her task has been carried out. I don't know that that needs to be a scene, but...
Okay. And just to clarify, the adrift herd, you are seeking out the herd that Elined spoke of in this tenement building?
Yep.
And you wish to start to sway influence over them?
Anyone who might want to relocate their domicile would be welcome to, but mostly she's looking to bolster the renovation crews. Of course, like I said, if they like her demeanor better than what they're used to, she's not going to turn away.
Did Elined or Nicholas tell Talisia where this place was?
Nope.
I don't remember that.
I think it was an oversight.
Oh, it definitely wasn't an oversight.
Well, that's going to make things really hard.
Well, then she would definitely be putting, if that's the case, then she feels like then any agreement she made is uh, verboten. It's pretty much null and void. So kid gloves are off.
Just to clarify, Nicholas didn't give that up either.
I think it was an oversight on my part. He would have actually done so. Unless Ellen had advised him not to.
I'll leave that to Elined. I want to make sure everyone has their chance to give input.
Elined would not have advised it, but she did station one of the guards there for a reason.
So, Nicholas, you were not advised not to give up this location. So
Okay.
So then
He doesn't know about the guard. Sorry, so.
So then, Talisia, you do know where this is, and then I'll give you a description of it. It's a very simple structure. I mean, you've passed by hundreds of tenement buildings. It's a two-story building. The top kind of stacks and leans over the lower half, kind of creating this natural shadow along the path. Also creates very natural dark alleyways. That's why a lot of crime happens in these kinds of places. Mixed use, a lot of foot traffic, people who don't really live here. So things happen where no one really cares what happens. The building itself is all wooden, and you can tell it was more dilapidated, but even as you inspect it and walk through it, you can see that there are workers upgrading it. You know, old wooden boards are being replaced, things are being cleaned, new paint is being applied, mopped up. You can tell a lot of work is going into renovating this to make it nicer, livable. There are 7 people living in this building. Two of note who kind of strike you as the most memorable are a woman who appears to be maybe 3 months pregnant, and her name is Heather Hurley, and a man named Guy DeFree, who's very friendly and kind of to the point, cut to the chase, and generally, that's the word I'm looking for. Not forward, but he doesn't veil any of his words. He speaks his mind. Describe to me how Talisia tries to build rapport with this group and kind of win them over to her side.
She'd lead with kind of commiserating with their circumstances. She too knows what it's like to be adrift in the world, not really know one's place, be without a rudder. She'd begin after a day or two of that, sort of ministering a bit to them in the way of suggesting that the notion of service to one's fellow man is a great way to find one's purpose.
Alright, so proselytizing to the merits of service unto others. Give me a charisma, maybe expression or leadership. Standard difficulty. Alright. 2 successes. Over the course of about a week, kind of showing up and just being a friendly face and speaking to people here and there where appropriate, the group seems to be fairly receptive of you. It's slow to start. Overall, Guy seems to just kind of generally nod in agreement. It's good to serve people. Heather has a different idea of service to others, but agrees that when the I'm lost for words. When the pay is commensurate with the service, then it's agreeable.
Something Talisia would rebut there is payment comes in many forms, my dear. Whether monetary or spiritual or physical. There are many ways for those who are of service to be compensated. I have found that simply meeting the needs of those who choose to serve often goes quite a long way in providing recompense.
She just kind of stares at you a little blankly. Yeah, whatever you say, Mum. Kind of looks confused between you and Guy.
For example, what needs have you that are not met?
She kind of looks down at the growing bump over her belly. Well, gonna need quite a bit of things for this little one. I'm not expecting to have the kind of coin for that.
Precisely. You will need a wet nurse, perhaps someone to assist in the delivery, or other services necessary for someone heavy with child.
Do you know anybody?
In my home country, I often helped address the needs of expectant mothers in many ways.
Guy looks hopeful, looking between you and Heather. Well, that's something. Perhaps something may go well for us then.
But you did not say what you needed, just that there were needs to address the little one.
Well, food, clothing, maybe a little basket. I don't know. Never been a mother.
Ah, then you are a happy mother. This is good. You understand in some places this is not a welcome blessing.
Well, I can't say it's expected, but we decided we're gonna find a way forward. And she looks happily towards Guy. I can't wait till Robert returns. I mean Lord DeVere. He'll be so excited.
I hope that this is true. Your lord?
Haven't seen him in months, but he'll return. She nods a couple of times and Guy mimics her.
Talisia puts on a forlorn face. It is poor master who abandons his servants.
Now, hold on there. He didn't abandon us. He had very important business to attend to.
Oh, so then he procured this tenement building for you. It is quite noble of him.
Well, not exactly, but, rubs his hand through his hair.
He provided for your needs on the road.
Well, to begin with, yes. For a while.
Then he sent word ahead to ensure that you would be well taken care of when you arrived in London.
Well, most likely a miscommunication. We thought,
Of course, I understand. It is hard to accept sometimes. But, as you say, he will return and welcome your new babe with open arms and excitement. I am sure you must be right.
uncertainty looks or passes between the two of them, looking to each other. I am sure. I'm sure he'll return and everything will be better.
Until then, please accept my humble offer. I will compensate for labor. I also possess a tenement building which is in the process of repair. If either of you or anyone in your company is in search of coin for purchasing certain goods and services, my coffers may be meager, but I am willing to share.
Well, we might take you up on that offer. Where can we find you?
My abode is on the waterfront, just there, and she'll point in the general direction of where her place is. You will know it by those working. They will greet you and speak very similarly. The accent is fairly unmistakable.
Oh, well, he may just do that. But, Elined and Nicholas have done much for us here. He kind of looks around.
Yes, this will be a profitable income property for her. I am sure that you and your company will do all you can to minimize your impact upon it, until such a time as she can fill it with other tenants who can pay.
Another look of uncertainty passes between them. Well, I should be leaving. Certainly there's coin to be made out there. His voice trails off as he passes by you.
And she'll hand him a scrap of paper with the approximate address of her tenement house. You will be most welcome. In return for your assistance, I will see that the babe is delivered as healthy as I am able.
He stops and looks down at the paper. He nods once and continues on. Heather offers a forced smile, and then, kind of passively resting her hands on her belly, she starts to make her way back upstairs.
Before she departs, Talisia will lay hands over the belly, assuming she allows it.
She will.
Blessed are those that serve. I wish you good health for you and your child.
She smiles pleasantly and nods a couple of times. Thank you.
Pass the word to your company. I extend an open offer.
She nods and then resumes her path upstairs.
She'll fold her hands at the small of her back and sway her way out of the tenement building, jingling along.
All right. And the scene fades on you leaving. And I think we will close the session there. So right about at the end. So we'll pick it up again next week.